Hello, everyone. I'm Rakesh from Analytics Plus, and we have a very exciting session today. Analytics has been one of the most widely discussed topics lately, and I'm sure most of you here have read a lot about the amazing things that analytics can do for you. Most of these articles that I read make it sound like analytics is this one pill that can make all your problems go away. Sometimes it sounds a little too good to be true, doesn't it? But how much can analytics really do for you? In the context of a help desk and ManageEngine Service Desk Plus, to be specific, a lot of people ask me why they need analytics when their help desk software offers out of the box reporting. What does it really tell them that I don't really know already? I used to love watching this show called The Mythbusters on Discovery Channel. These two guys take up popular urban myths and use science to check the validity of the myth. And I'm not sure how many of you in the audience have heard about this show before, but this was a pretty popular show back in the day, and I think it's still on a few channels. So anyway, in today's session, I'm going to play the role of a mythbuster and put analytics to the test. And the question we're asking is, can analytics give me help desk insights that I don't really see already? And does it offer something more than my help desk reporting features? I'm going to be using a few help desk scenarios and check if analytics can really help you in those situations. If it does, we can consider the myth busted. So before we begin, I'm going to give you a very short introduction to the analytics software that I'll be using for these tests. Analytics Plus is relatively new to the ManageEngine suite of products. It's a full-fledged business intelligence and self-service analytics software that can analyze data from a variety of sources, including spreadsheets, your in-house and cloud databases. So this includes your Microsoft SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, etc. It can also pull in data from third-party applications using web APIs. And in addition to this, Analytics Plus also offers out-of-the-box integration with a few ManageEngine software, specifically from our help desk suite of products and also our monitoring suite of products. So to name a few of them, it offers out-of-the-box integration with Service Desk Plus, Service Desk Plus MSP, Support Center Plus, and that's from our help desk side. And it offers out-of-the-box integration with Op Manager and Applications Manager. These are two network and application monitoring softwares, respectively. What do I mean by out-of-the-box integration? As soon as you connect Analytics Plus with any of these software, it starts pulling in data and offers over 250 different reports and dashboards for each of them. And of course, you can build your own set of reports and dashboards in addition to what the application offers. All right, so that was a quick introduction of the analytics software that I'm going to be using. So let's jump into our scenarios. All right, so let's say you've just taken over as the new help desk supervisor, and you've been tasked with identifying pitfalls in in your help desk processes to make them more efficient. All right, so you're the new guy. You need to go in and make some changes to make the help desk function more efficiently. But before you go in and make those adjustments, you need to first fully understand how everything works. Right, so I'm going to give you a reference of another TV show that I used to watch. It was a little more popular than the Mythbusters. It was called CSI, which stood for Crime Scene Investigation, and it's about solving crimes, right? And I was fascinated by the entire process of solving a crime from the time the detectives arrive on the scene of the crime to identifying the criminal. One of the first things that a detective does to solve a case is establish a timeline of events that lead up to the crime, and also a timeline of events that happened after the crime was committed. Establishing a timeline is so important because it helps them identify possible suspects and also the possible reasons that culminated to the crime. You could apply the same approach to your help desk, right? But if only you had an interactive timeline that you can use to get a good understanding of what happened in your help desk in the past, and also what's happening in your help desk currently. With analytics and with Analytics Plus, you you do, and I'm going to show you how you can construct a timeline. Right, I'm going to switch to the ManageEngine Analytics Plus console. So this is the home screen that you see once you log into the application. At the top, you have a bunch of tiles which list the default or the out-of-the-box integrations I was talking about. Right below that, you have a set of databases that I've created in the system, and you also have a tab that shows you the shared databases um, that other users have shared with you. Now, I've already integrated my help desk application, that is a ManageEngine Service Desk Plus, with Analytics Plus, and this is the database that you get, or in other words, this is what you see once you get into the database. So you have a bunch of tables that contain data from the different modules in Service Desk Plus, and below that you have a bunch of reports and dashboards, the 250 odd reports that I was talking about earlier. Now, since we're trying to construct a timeline of events, I'm going to be using data from the request module. So this contains details like your request IDs, your subject, your requester, your technician, created time, etc. And to build a visualization or a report, I'll just click on this plus sign and I'll choose the new chart view option, which is a graphical report that you can build. You also have options to build tabular reports, as you can see in this drop down here. All right, so let's create a new chart view. And before we begin, let's give this a name. Let's call this timeline. And let me explain this canvas a little bit for you. So this is your report builder, and on the left-hand side, you have the different fields from your request module. And to build a report, all you'll have to do is drag these fields, drop it onto the x-axis, y-axis, the color, text, and size section. You also have options to add default filters or set up user filters where users can pick their own fields to define or filter down to the data that they're interested in. All right, so to construct a timeline of events, the most important that you need is time. There are different time fields in your help desk application, like your created time of the request, you have the resolve time of a request, you have a request due by time, etc. But for this, I'm going to be using the created time of a request, and I'll just use this search box here to search for the fields that I'm looking for, and that is my created time. I'll just simply drag and drop it on the x-axis. And I have a little drop down here which will let me define what my x-axis should look like. I can have it set up by month and year, or I could have it set up based on the quarter or a full date or anything, or any of these cyclic values also. But for this, I'm going to just use month and year, the default setting. All right, so we have the time component, and let's begin constructing our timeline. So let's first understand what or how the flow of requests were in the past. And so for that, I'm going to look for the incoming request count and drop it onto the y-axis. and click here to generate graph because we have our two basic components to build a report, which is the x-axis and the y-axis. Just click here to generate graph, and there you go. Now you have a graph displaying the request volume throughout the course of the past few months, and you could see the volume has been really high in May 2016. It dipped in June 2016, but after that, it has been somewhere around the 70 to 90 mark. All right, what would be interesting is to see how many of these requests have been resolved in each of these months. And for that, we'll have to drop the resolved request count field in this particular report. So let's go back to edit design, use our search field and look for resolved request count. Resolve request count, that it is, and just drop it onto the y-axis and click here to generate graph. And now we have a report showing us the incoming request count and the resolved request count. So the red line here represents your incoming request count, and you can see that the incoming request count, or in other words, the resolved request count, which is represented in green, is always below the incoming request count. What this means is that your technicians are sort of falling behind, or in other words, they're not resolving as many requests as they're getting in their help desk queue, which could only mean that there are going to be a few backlogs in your help desk. So let's see what the backlogs look like. So go back to edit design, look for backlog, and drop backlog request count onto the y-axis. Now, before I generate this graph, I want to talk about backlog request count for a second. Now, those of you who use Service Desk Plus probably know that there isn't really a KPI in Service Desk Plus called backlog request count. So what we've done in Analytics Plus is create a lot of derived or calculated fields that calculate values based on certain conditions. And in this case, a backlog request count is one that hasn't been resolved yet, and the type of request which is past its due date. So that is what a backlog request count is. So what we've done is we've taken or applied those two conditions to calculate this particular value called backlog request count. So analytics sort of gives you ways wherein you can create such calculated fields in addition to what you get from your help desk software or any software or help desk software for that matter. All right, so coming back to our timeline, now we have the backlog request count on this report, and you can see that, as we guessed, there is quite a number of backlogs in the help desk queue. Now, what would be interesting also is to see what our SLA violations look like. So let's go back to edit design, go to SLA violated requests, and drop it onto the y-axis, and click here to generate graph. And there you go. You have the SLA violated requests also on this timeline report. So just in a matter of seconds, we were able to generate a report which sort of gives you a snapshot of what happened in your help desk in the past few months. And this is very valuable for especially a new help desk supervisor who has just taken office and is trying to figure out what to do. Now, if you pay attention to the SLA violations and the backlogs, you can sort of see that they follow the same trend. So whenever there is an increase in backlogs, the SLA violations seem to increase, and that pattern sort of continues throughout the course of the year. So I'm guessing every time there's an increase in backlogs, there is the SLA violations are taking hit. So let's try and confirm that. Let's drill down a little bit. let's drill down onto this report. And I'm going to pick July 2016 because that is the month when I see a very good correlation between the backlog requests and the SLA violations. Let's drill down by, let's say, category of requests. And to do that, I just need to click on the section of the report that I'm interested in, click on drill down by, and I get a little pop-up here. And I can search or I can look for any particular field that I'm interested in. So these are fields from my request module. So I'm going to drill down by category of requests. Let's click on category. And since we're only interested in backlog request count and the SLA violations at this point in time, let's uncheck the other two request counts that we added to the particular report. And now we have just backlog request count and the SLA violated requests. Now, as I guessed, you can see that every time the backlog request count goes up, the SLA violated requests or the number of SLA violations also seem to be going up. As a new help desk supervisor who has just taken office, my first plan of action would be to bring down those backlogs. In effect, I will be bringing down the number of SLA violations, and that hopefully will increase the efficiency of my help desk. That was our first scenario. And let's say it's been a few months since you've been or you've taken over as the new help desk supervisor, and all of a sudden all your senior engineers have quit, leaving you with a lot of inexperienced technicians on your help desk team. So how do you identify areas or areas where they lack expertise and make sure they are continuously improving? Continual service improvement, or CSI, is at the crux of IT service management, as most of you already know. And CSI aims to continually improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of services and processes. In simple terms, to achieve continuous service improvement, you should compare your current efficiency levels with your past performance and make sure you see an improvement. So let's split this particular problem that we have in hand into two sections. First, we need to identify the areas where my technicians lack expertise. And number two, we need to come up with a way where they can continuously improve. So let's see how analytics can help you do that. No matter how much or how good your technicians are trained, there are going to be areas where they lack expertise or they take some extra time to provide answers or appropriate resolutions. Identifying the top categories of requests with the longest average resolution time should, in effect, give you the answer. So let's go back to our analytics software and build a report that tells us or that shows us the categories of requests where the resolution time is really high. So for this, I'm going to be using the request module again. I'm going to click on this plus sign here, click on new chart view. As always, let's give it a name. Let's call it CSI, short for continuous service improvement. Now, there are two components that I need to build this report. The first thing that I need is the category of requests, and the next thing that I need is the average resolution time. So let's look for category, drop it onto the x-axis. Now let's look for resolution time. And I'm using this field which gives me the average resolution time for this particular quarter. So let's see what this looks like. And again, this is a calculated field that only calculates the resolution time for this quarter. So let's click on generate graph and see what that looks like. So these are the areas. Now let's sort this by descending order. And you can see these are the areas. For example, software request takes the longest time to resolve, followed by printer problems, administrative issues, patch updates, ISP link, etc. So now we have a report showing the top weakest categories. Now, how do you compare this with your performance in the past? So I've created a calculated field that computes the average resolution time from 3 months ago. So let's look for that particular field. Average resolution time 3 months ago, and we drop it onto the y-axis. Now let's generate this graph. So in this report, you will be able to view the resolution times in the past quarter, which is represented by this red bar here. And it's set up right beside the current resolution time or the average resolution time in this quarter. For example, by looking at this section, I can say that the resolution time for software request related issues have gone up in the past 3 months. Similarly, the average resolution time for printer problems has gone up. For patch updates, it has actually improved because the red line is bigger, or it's taller than the green bar here. So which means that the average resolution time in this category has gone down. But in most of the other cases, you can see that the average resolution time has gone up. So using this report, you can constantly monitor improvements. You can probably set up a few training exercises, or you can set up some knowledge transfer sessions to your technicians, and you can monitor the progress using this CSI report. So that solves this problem. Now, anybody who's working in the help desk setting knows that this is one of the most commonly thrown around questions that goes around quite a bit. Someone like randomly notices a bunch of unassigned requests in queue, and the immediate question that pops up is, do we need to hire more people to man the help desk? Your boss randomly notices that the resolution times are taking a hit, and the immediate question that pops up is, do we need to hire more people? I hope we can all agree that you definitely need to hire more people if your request volume is consistently increasing. The key word here is consistently. I'll tell you why in a second. Let's look at this report that I generated using Service Desk Plus. This gives me the request volume per month, and I see that the number of requests in July has been higher than the previous month. Similarly, the number of requests in August has been higher than July, and September has been higher than any of the other months. But does that really mean that the request volume is on the increase? Not necessarily. A major outage in that particular month, I'm talking about September now, a major outage in the month of September could have caused a spike in the number of requests that came in. To really know if the request volume has consistently gone up, you need to look at the average number of requests that you get on a daily basis rather than looking at the overall request volume. And I call this average request per day the request velocity. So a request velocity report will give you the average number of requests that come into your help desk on a daily basis. Because, there's a popular saying that goes, average is better than actual values, right? Actually, that's not a popular saying. I just made that up. But anyway, so let's look at what our request velocity report looks like, and I'll try and explain how it's different from a regular report that gives you the request volume per month. All right, let's go to the request module again, click on new chart view, and I'm going to call this request volume. Let's use our created time for the x-axis. Before I add the request velocity onto this particular report, I'm going to add the incoming request count. That way we'll be able to see how request velocity is different from request volume. All right, so let's generate this report and let's switch this to a bar chart. And right now, this report is only telling me the overall number of requests that are coming into my help desk every month. It'll sort of be better if this report can show us the actual values. So I'm going to go to Access, click on this option, which will display the values on the report. There it is. And now what we have is the request volume report, but I should have actually called this request velocity. So I'm going to quickly change that. All right, so request velocity. Now click back and click on view mode. And now let's add the request velocity onto this chart. And there you go. The y-axis, request velocity. And now let's switch this to a combo chart. So the red line gives me the incoming request count, and the green line is giving me the request velocity. In other words, the number of requests that are coming into my help desk on a daily basis. This report would look better if we reverse the line and the bar. So I'm just going to go into the settings, click on combination, turn that around, and click on apply. All right, so we have the bars representing the incoming request count, and we have the line representing the request velocity. So as you can see, the request velocity, or the average number of requests that have been coming into my help desk, has been around 3 to 4 requests up until April 2017, but it has shot up to about 27 and 26 per day in June and July. So even though the actual volume has not increased, or the overall volume has not increased, you can see that the request velocity has increased. That's an indicator that you probably need more people to handle the load. So the next time you see the request velocity go up consistently, you know that you need to hire more people instead of making random guesses based on some signs that you see in your help desk. All right, so you've come a long way as a new help desk supervisor. You've taken care of the efficiency problem, you've taken care of the resolution problem, and now customers are complaining about slow responses and resolution times. When you look past the help desk workflows, the complex system of SLAs, those custom forms and rules that you spent so much time and love building, the fundamental function of your help desk is to resolve requests in the shortest time possible. And for your help desk to function efficiently, there needs to be a constant stream of requests being closed to make room for new requests. One of the primary metrics that you need to watch out for is the ratio of incoming requests against the number of requests being closed or resolved. And this ratio is what we call the burn rate. So a burn rate is the percentage of requests your help desk closes in comparison to the incoming requests. So a burn rate of 50% in a month shows that your help desk has only closed half the number of requests it received that month. In a perfect world, you would want your burn rate to be 100%. However, that is sort of impossible because, you know, humans. But anything above 80% is a good sign that your help desk is on top of things. All right, so let's see what a burn rate report will look like. And for this report, or to build this report, I'm going to be using a query table that I constructed based on the request table from Service Desk Plus. So this query table, all it does is it combines the number of incoming requests and the number of closed requests on a daily basis and gives it in a simple form. So I just use this to combine the data that I need and just filter out the stuff that I don't need from my request table. I can build a new chart view or any of the visualizations on a query table similar to what I would do with a normal data table that I get from my data source. All right, so let's click on the new chart view. Let's call this burn rate. And as always, let's drop the x-axis component, which is the time. And I'm going to add the incoming request count and the closed request count in addition to the burn rate so that my report makes better sense for people who are viewing it. All right, so we have time on the x-axis, we have incoming request count, we have closed request count, and we have burn rate on the y-axis. So let's generate the graph. The application has put each of my fields in a different axis, so I'm just going to merge them. And I'm going to switch to a combo chart, and let me switch the lines and the bars the way I want it to. Just give me a second. So go to the combination. Incoming request is going to be a bar, closed request is going to be a bar, but burn rate is going to be a line. And also let's display some values on the chart. So I'll check this option and click on apply. All right, so there you go. That's our burn rate report. The red line represents the incoming requests, or the red bar represents the incoming requests. The green bars represent the closed requests, and the blue line represents the burn rate. So the burn rate has been about 83.3% in the month of June 2016, which means your help desk was able to resolve 8 out of 10 requests that came in that month. But after that particular month, the burn rate looks pretty bad. It has been around 27 to highest being 49% in July 2017. So that means they've only been able to resolve about 3 requests out of the 10 requests that they've been getting in each of those months. So this is a good indicator of how your help desk resolution times are looking. The first step towards improvement is knowing where you stand currently. And that's exactly what your burn rate is telling you. It's telling you that your resolution rate is really low, which in effect also means that your resolution times are not looking so good. So this report can give you valuable insight into how soon your help desk is able to resolve the number of requests and also help you identify areas where you can improve. So that was our burn rate. Right. So finally, this is going to be the last scenario, and I'm going to teach you how to hypnotize your boss. I wish I could, but there's only so much analytics can do for you. But anyway, your IT is on a budget, but your office Wi-Fi network desperately needs an upgrade. How do you convince your boss? This seems pretty straightforward, right? Generate a report showing the number of requests raised with the category as internet, subcategory as Wi-Fi, item as connection issues, and show that to your boss. But here's the problem. I'm sure most of you, or almost all of you here, have a long list of categories and subcategories in your help desk to help you categorize requests. But how many of your users really follow it? They wouldn't really go through the hassle of categorizing requests properly unless you made those fields mandatory. Even if you force them to, you can't be 100% sure they choose the right values. There's no winning, right? If most of your requests are created through emails, there's no question of having the right category, subcategory, and item. So when you go to your manager asking for the office Wi-Fi to be upgraded, and he asks you how many people reported issues with the Wi-Fi, do you have the right answer? Most likely not. So how in the world is analytics going to help you, especially when Service Desk Plus or Help Desk or your help desk doesn't have the right data? If you look at it, even though users don't go through the trouble of categorizing requests properly, they make sure that they describe the crux of their problem in the email subject. So all you need to do now is go through 3,000 odd requests, look for the words Wi-Fi in the subject line, and show that to your boss, right? But but fortunately, there's an easier way to do that using analytics. You can use analytics to sniff out some of those important keywords that you're looking for and use those in a report. So I'm going to show you how. Let's go back to the analytics module, click on the request table and click on new chart view. And let's just call this search string. And for this, all I need is the search string that I have created. So I've created a calculated field which will look for specific strings that I'm looking for, like desktop, password, printer, server, and Wi-Fi in the subject line of the request. So I'm going to uncheck no match because that is giving me the stuff that doesn't match. And this is the report that gives me the search strings that I'm looking for. And you have Wi-Fi here, which accounts to about 43% out of the list that I'm looking for. So now I have about 180 different requests with the subject Wi-Fi, and now I can rely on this data to look or to present to my boss. Now, if you want to get more specific, you can customize your search string to Wi-Fi issues or Wi-Fi trouble or connecting to Wi-Fi and make sure that you're getting the right type of data from the application. So the next time you want to convince your boss to upgrade your office Wi-Fi, you know what to do. Right, so a quick recap of the things that analytics offers us based on the scenarios that we just discussed. Um, Analytics can give you an unlimited number of interactive and role-based dashboards because anytime you look at a report, people get curious about certain sections of the report and they want to drill down and see what happened in that particular area. And analytics gives you a way of doing that. For example, if you remember the drill down options that we used, you can use that to drill down on any section of the report that you're interested in and see what exactly happened. And also, you can create a lot of role-based dashboards or reports because not everybody in your organization is going to be interested in the same set of things. So, role-based reports and role-based dashboards is very important. And also, analytics gives you a way of running investigative analysis using visualizations, like the timeline report that we started out with, where we were able to sort of see what happened over the course of time and sort of investigate into things that really caught our attention. Analytics also gives you a way of creating a lot of derived KPIs or calculated fields, which you can build upon using a few formula functions. And all you need to do is run those functions and derive KPIs. And most of the scenarios that we went through today, I've used such derived KPIs because most of the time the default KPIs just don't cut it. And also, you could run a lot of comparative analysis. If you remember the CSI example that we talked about, where we compared the resolution time from 3 months ago to the current resolution times using a single report, and that's a good example of comparative analysis. And also, you can run a lot of trend analysis that sort of tell you what happened or what your KPIs look like over the course of time. And analytics also gives you an ability to combine your help desk data with data from other applications. This is a point that we probably didn't discuss in one of the scenarios, but this is something that you can do. You can combine your help desk data with data from, let's say, your monitoring system or your financial application, and run a lot of comparative analysis by combining data from multiple sources. So analytics has given us a lot of new insights that your help desk reporting software doesn't really show you. And also it offers a lot more in terms of reporting features like calculated fields, the ability to combine data from other sources, a trend analysis, comparative analysis that you probably don't have in a help desk reporting module. So I think we can consider this myth busted, right? All right, so I've discussed about 10 different scenarios in the course of the past 30 minutes, but we've also put together a bunch of 10 reports that any help desk administrator needs. You can download that ebook by scanning the QR code that's flashing on your screen, where we've discussed a few additional reports that will really help any of the help desk administrators. So that brings us to the end of this session.